Welcome to another episode of Building Your First Home. Today we're excited to have a talented guest with us, Amy Blight. A passionate interior designer with over 13 years of industry experience, Amy holds a diploma in interior design and decoration and began her journey at the renowned Beaumont Tiles, where she spent 7 years in the builders department assisting clients with their interior selections. Her expertise has taken her across Melbourne, working with design firms in Templestowe and Brighton for about 4 years, and even delving into property styling. In January 2024, Amy officially launched her own company, Amy Blight Design, and she's already juggling 9 exciting projects, from builder selections and renovations to new builds and furniture and lighting design. Amy specialises in creating beautiful functional spaces that reflect her clients' unique styles. Join us as we chat with Amy about the latest trends in interior design, her approach in styling spaces, and her invaluable tips for those looking to make their new home truly their own. Welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here today, Amy, and maybe start by telling us a little bit about how you got into interior design.
Well, I've always been creative through school, through art and design, and then just sort of fell into interior design and sort of didn't really steer away from that. So
was property always an interest of yours, in that design sense, or?
Yeah, it was. So my parents used to buy houses and renovate them and then sell them. So that was always just growing up, just part of it all.
Part of your life.
Did you help with the styling and the interior design?
Not so much. My mum was pretty good with that.
Okay.
What about painting the walls?
No, I don't think I helped. I think I just enjoyed it.
You enjoyed living in nice homes.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got to see them turn from something terrible to probably something really nice.
Yeah, no, they did a good job.
Yeah.
So was it more the property side that got you into interior design, or just your creative side that landed you in that, role?
Probably the creative side. Like, I love being creative and just creating spaces and
I guess interior design is a good way you can actually apply that creativity.
yes, definitely.
So we're at the moment we are doing a project together.
We are.
Yeah, very exciting. Nice project in Blairgowrie. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
It's a beautiful project. I mean, there's so much detail involved and there's really high-end materials and just a really beautiful colour palette. We have gone with viola marble throughout, emerald haze, natural stone, so a green stone that's used throughout, so that's really stunning. And just every little detail is in there.
We've thought about most things.
Yes.
Including the little cigar drawer.
I know. And, we've got the entry with the checkerboard pattern. So we've got the viola marble and the travertine. We've got the wine wall as you walk in.
Well, that's important, yep.
That's the most important part of the house.
And you got 2 bars.
2 bars.
And a sunken lounge.
And maybe one more bar. We'll talk about it later. Is it your favourite project you've ever worked on?
Yeah.
Oh,
you guys have been really good.
That's good. She does have to say that.
I do. But it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
But you've got a really broad experience within interior design, which I think makes you a great person to talk to about this, because as much as you work on these higher end projects where you look at really high end finishes and a lot of detail, you've also got experience assisting, maybe clients with builders selections as well, where you're working with a more standardised range and obviously tailoring that and trying to make the best design outcome you can.
Yeah, and obviously working within clients' budgets and trying to create something beautiful, but within their guidelines.
You don't have to spend a fortune for the property to present nicely.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I guess that's a lot of what you would do in your role, would be giving that advice and helping clients, stick in budget but achieve those outcomes that they want as far as how the end product looks.
Yeah, definitely. So just a neutral colour palette and then just adding in little details here and there.
Yeah. In your experience, what's the biggest mistake you've ever seen in the design world in a house?
There's been a few. Some crazy wallpaper that wasn't finished off correctly when it was installed, so it sort of licked up the tile a little bit.
Oh,
and
nice.
It was a jungle theme, so it was very,
What
very
room
out
of
there.
the house did
it
that
was
go into?
the powder room.
Oh.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then some interesting paint colours throughout, pastels. There's been a few.
I guess on that, what's the worst design trend you've seen?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Maybe pine furniture.
Well, yeah, pine furniture. I mean, there's been a few. I mean, trends come and go all the time. So
what would be a trend that you'd recommend for people that would stand the test of time?
I guess just keeping it timeless and a neutral palette, and just rather than adding in coloured cabinetry or playing around with that, just keeping it very neutral and then adding in your furniture pieces, artwork, cool lighting.
Yeah.
So when you say keeping it neutral, like what are some examples of finishes that somebody could choose in their home to keep a neutral palette?
So you could go either way. So you could go white cabinetry and a grey bench top, a light grey bench top, sort of stick away from the darker tones.
Yeah.
Just keep it nice and fresh. A light oak floor in an engineered board or a laminate, depending on budget.
Yep.
And then you can go to sort of like the greys, so more of a warmer tone that's sort of coming back in.
So essentially it sounds like keep it that sort of light colour scheme, keep things very simple as far as the actual selections go in the home itself, but then using other avenues like furnishings and that where you might want to introduce different elements to the home.
100%, yeah. Just keeping it nice and fresh.
Yeah. I've seen some interesting things in my time. I once went into, it was like a big double story. So the client would have spent a bit on this build, and I went into the ensuite, and each door of the vanity, so there's 4 doors, were a different colour, and they were blue, green, yellow and red.
What's your professional opinion on that one?
Yeah, I would veto that.
It was actually, it was Jordan's house.
I'll have to have you over for some tips later on.
Okay, sounds good.
It was actually a legitimate client, and that was their actual selection. Not sure why.
Wow, was it the same throughout the house or just that room?
Just the ensuite, just their
Crazy.
parents' sanctuary.
It really took a pop of colour to the next level.
Yeah. So you wouldn't recommend that?
No.
No,
just keep it very neutral.
Yeah. So when a client is going to do their selections for a new build, they'll generally go into like a selection centre. What can someone expect when they go to do that?
So basically you would select, obviously, wherever you're going, so your tiles or whatever, or your flooring, and then generally you would have other samples with you. So you'd have your stone bench tops or engineered stone or laminates, your cabinetry colours, your paint colours. So you sort of start to put a palette together.
Yep.
And then, you can have a look at your tapware and sort of add that in and sort of.
So basically build up like a little mood board to see how it all looks together.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, like builders will actually set up facilities where all of that is available in the one venue, so that you can spend a day, mixing, matching, putting those different elements together. But of course, in other cases, depending on the builder, that's something you might need to do by going to a range of different showrooms. Is that correct?
Yeah, or your interior designer or whoever's doing the selections would have mobile samples with them.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
But ideally what you're wanting to do, I guess, on the day is have all those options there so you can combine them and see how they work together.
Yeah, it's just easier for the client as well rather than going to a number of showrooms, and it's just good for the one-stop shop.
Yeah, for sure.
And what would your role be on that day in the selection process?
So I would be guiding the clients, obviously listening to what they want to achieve, and then, just guiding them through certain products, about tiles and different properties of that, about different carpets, and just, going through the detail of everything basically.
And if someone decided to go a little bit rogue and pick multicoloured cabinetry, would you step in and give your professional opinion?
I would.
Yeah.
I don't have a good poker face. I would be kind about it, but I would give a suggestion not to do that.
That's good. Yeah.
I can say that that's true because you didn't like my sand driveway. I knew about it.
At least she's honest.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
How long would an appointment like that take for a client on an average build?
So it can take numerous appointments, but generally if you packed it into a whole day, it would be a full day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So a client should expect to set aside a full day to be able to properly make those decisions.
Yeah.
And how in depth are those decisions? Like how far does it go with the things they need to decide on?
I mean, it would be pretty much confirmed on the day. So you would be selecting everything, and then, you could have a follow-up meeting and just confirm it all once you've had to think about it, because it is quite a lot to take in.
Yeah.
But generally, like any selection I've done, it's pretty much locked in, and
finalised.
You can sort of gauge how the client's feeling. If they're not comfortable or they're umming and ahhing about a certain tile, whatever, you get them to go away and think about it and then rebook them and
finalise it then.
I actually remember a scenario where a client did their selections and the interior designer guided them away from a particular colour palette they were after, and they ended up going away thinking about it, and they went back and changed it all back to what they originally chose against everyone's guidance, and you can imagine the outcome that there was in that house.
I mean, you've got to sort of gauge it. Like, you would tell if your client's leaning towards a certain colour scheme, and you've got to listen to your client.
Well, ultimately, it's their decision at the end of the day, but you do somewhat want to guide them into making the right decision.
Yeah.
And not regretting it. Yeah.
I guess a lot of what your role is there is to accommodate their tastes and preferences, but in a way where they actually get a nice outcome with those tastes and preferences in their home.
Yeah, 100%.
And as far as on the day of selection, what's the depth of, how far into selecting colours would a client expect to go? As far as what sort of things would they expect to be selecting?
So anywhere from external colours, so all of your, your roof, your gutter, your flooring, to grout colours, laying codes of tiles.
Could you explain laying codes of tiles?
Sure. So, obviously it depends on the style or the size of it, but you've got you can either lay your wall tiles horizontal or vertical. Horizontal was quite popular for a long time, and vertical's come back in because it makes your room feel taller. Just depends what you want to achieve.
So basically the pattern of the way the tiles are laid.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah, okay.
But I guess it's also, from a client's perspective, to be prepared. You're not just choosing a tile, but what you're actually choosing is how do we lay that tile or how do we position that tile?
So whether you want to do a pattern with a brick one pattern, say to your kitchen splashback or laundry, which is quite popular, rather than using your engineered stone, because that can be quite costly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What sort of preparation would you recommend a client does ahead of that appointment?
So I generally get clients to have a look at Pinterest, send me any vision boards that they like, and then I usually have a Zoom with clients just to sort of get an idea of their style. And then on the day of the appointment, I know what to bring because, as discussed beforehand, not all selection centres have everything available. So at least if you can sort of get an idea of their style, you can bring the appropriate materials.
So generally you would find that the most successful appointments are the ones where the client has actually done a little bit of research ahead of time around what it is they like in a home?
Yeah, definitely, because it is such a big decision. You've got you haven't even pretty much signed a contract and you're selecting everything for your house that's going to be built in a year's time. So
yeah, I guess with your experience, looking at a flat lay of samples you can probably get a pretty good image of what that's going to look like once it's actually applied. But for somebody doing it for the very first time, it's actually hard to look at that and go, what is that going to look like when my house is built?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I had some images and if I just said, look, I don't know why, but I like this, as in your role, can you then give guidance around what sort of selections I might make to align with those images I like?
Yeah, definitely, because it gives you an idea of the direction the client is going in, and maybe they like that feature tile or that grey floor tile, and then you can just sort of build on from that. So it is really important for the client to do research because there's so many different options out there.
That's true.
And what if I just come into my appointment and I'm like, well, I don't know what colours I like. Actually, maybe I don't even care about colours. How would you approach an appointment like that?
Well, I'd probably gauge the client. If they were not sure, I would just put some suggestions together and then probably book them in for another appointment once they've had a think about it.
Yep.
But if they wanted me to guide them completely, I would put what I think is going to work, especially for resale.
That would probably work really well in their favour.
Yeah.
It would, yeah. Sometimes the less input, the better, but it depends on the client. I think another good thing a lot of builders have started offering clients as well is they'll do pre-selected schemes with interior designers. So they're putting together an overall idea of what an external scheme would be or an internal scheme. So those clients don't have to go and do a full selection, but they can just pick a general idea of what they like. Have you ever done any work in selecting those sorts of schemes?
I did at my first job where it was just preset and then clients wouldn't have to think about it. A lot of people don't have time.
Yes, that's true.
And like I said, there's so many different options. And if you've got a scheme ready to go that works, which is within the budget, you don't have to think about it. I think it's a great option.
I agree.
And when you're designing those schemes, what's the thought process? Is it something unique or is it just something that meets the market that you're thinking about?
I think it would meet the market, so it would have to be quite neutral. Again, I feel like I keep saying neutral, but, you know.
But neutral's a safe choice, I think.
I know. And then you just add everything to it. And, you know, you want to have the space looking the best it can for 5-10 years. Like everything does date over time.
For sure.
Of course. Yeah, I guess that's where the less you put into the house itself as far as unique finishes and the more you do it with just furniture and decoration, the easier it is to keep your house looking up to date, I imagine.
Yeah, 100%.
What are some small things then for the listeners that you'd recommend that you could put into a house without trying to act like you're on the block and go and put some jungle wallpaper in? What are some nice like small features that you could do that aren't going to cost a fortune but will actually overall have a good impact on the house?
So you could update your tapware.
Yep. That's a good one.
What's the sort of tapware you're seeing people put in homes now?
Over the last couple of years, people were putting in brass and copper, but a lot of people are sort of pairing it back to brushed nickel. So that is quite popular.
I suppose that's probably not really going to date as fast as maybe like a copper or it might be unique to a scheme.
Yeah.
I suppose you do need to think that at some point you might sell that property and it needs to appeal to the most amount of people to get the highest sale price. At
The
the end of the day.
longevity of it.
That's right.
What
yeah.
about chrome taps?
No. Nope.
Chrome taps aren't doing it for
Chrome
you.
taps are out. What
No.
about black tapware?
I feel like it's had its time.
I tend to agree.
It's a bit overdone, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's a place for it. It's not bad, but you know, I think just sort of pairing it back and keeping it quite neutral is.
Well, if the cost for a black tapware or like a nice brushed nickel are similar, pick the nicer one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you think brushed nickel is a safe choice or do you think it'll have its time?
I think it's a safe choice.
It's a safe choice.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna date.
Make sure we've put that in Blair Gary.
It's that's actually brass.
Well, it's actually
dated.
organic brass.
Oh, that won't date, Jordan. It's already dated.
No, that's true.
No.
Is there anything else you'd recommend?
So you could do wallpapers.
Yep.
You could do like VJ.
Jungle ones.
So you could do, for example, in your powder room, you could do a really beautiful grass cloth, which is a natural fibre, and that's easy to change over time.
That's true.
You could also look at doing like VJ paneling or wainscoting throughout.
Just for a bit of character.
Yeah, and that's not expensive. And you can paint it a colour if you want to, or you can just leave it white.
And I suppose that can easily be changed down the track. Like I suppose it's easier to repaint over some VJ paneling than it is to rip off and retile.
100%, yeah. Yeah.
What about wallpaper? Is that something somebody could look at doing themselves?
I mean, you'd want a wallpaper installer to pop it in, but you could definitely do it after handover and it's easy to change.
True.
Or you could paint the powder room, sort of add in a bit of personality in there.
That's true. I guess that can be one room you can have a bit of fun with.
Yeah, as long as the base of it is neutral, yeah, you can have a bit of fun in there.
What are some maybe furnishing items a client or a customer of yours might use to bring their personality into a house?
Rugs are a great way to bring in some colour. You've got your cushions, artwork obviously. But again, you'd probably want to keep the big ticket items quite neutral, quite classic. So you could go like a black table like this, or you could do oak.
You don't want to be replacing your dining table every couple of years.
No, but cushions are inexpensive, so that's something you could definitely do. And your taste does change over time, so it's good to replace that stuff.
That's true.
You know,
Easy to keep up to date.
yeah.
What are some things then that you would tell listeners to maybe like avoid trying to do, especially if it's their first home?
I guess overthink it. That would be a big one. Just keeping it consistent so it all flows rather than feeling like you need to do all your bathrooms different, do your kitchen different. Like if you pick colours that you like, just keep it consistent.
That is good advice because I've seen people build their first homes and they've had 5 favourite tiles, and you've seen that in the 5 different wet areas, and it doesn't look great.
No.
And I think for resale value, obviously that consistency is something a lot of purchasers look at. So if a client wants to maximize the return on their property, they're going to be much better off doing that, keeping it consistent throughout and keeping it neutral, as you said too.
100%. Yeah. I did have a client one time back in my Beaumont days who literally did every room different, including a W-sit toilet off the ensuite in a different floor tile and wall
No,
tile.
that's not good.
No.
Could they just not pick, or?
I think they just wanted to utilise every option
Everything
available.
involved.
I feel like that's what I've seen people do. It's kind of like they feel like they're missing opportunities if they're only picking one consistent, let's say, tile. So then they just go crazy and pick 5, but their house just looks really confused.
I guess that's another thing. Like if a client's aiming for a particular style, how important do you think it is that they be consistent to that style? So if I was going for a Hampton style, hypothetically, should I look at introducing other styles into that, or do you think it's better to stay consistent to the one style?
Keep it consistent. You want it all to flow.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So if you're, obviously matching your facade to your cabinetry, to your interior colour scheme and making sure it all sort of combines nicely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think one of the worst things sometimes you do see is maybe someone's had their Pinterest account a little too long and their favourite things are a journey through time. That all ends up in the one house.
I've seen that. Yeah. They obviously loved Hamptons because that's the facade, and then as you step in, the style changes to something completely different, and you go to the backyard and it's something completely different again.
And I think for future value, the best thing we ever see is when a home hits a particular style well, and you've got potential purchasers coming through, they love it because they can fall in love with a house that meets a style they like.
I mean, if they're going to like the facade as a Hamptons, they're going to love the internal as Hamptons
that's
as
true.
well.
Exactly
and they wouldn't
right,
expect anything different. They're not going to walk through and see it all modern and like a black kitchen and like dark
be
grey
very
bench
confusing.
tops. It would be very confusing.
It would definitely throw off buyers then because the house would feel like disjointed.
Yeah.
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 So at the moment, there's obviously there's a lot of design trends always, but right now, what are some of the main design trends that you're seeing?
There's a lot of moody hues, saturated moody palettes, and just layering your colour palette. So doing beautiful natural stones. So example, green.
Yeah.
Yep.
The emerald haze, and then we're doing a beautiful Venetian green plaster and just playing with the colours and the textures.
So moody hues, what does that mean?
Just moody. It's just, gives you a sense of calmness, I guess.
That's a good way of putting it.
So if I wanted to style my home with moody hues, what sort of colour scheme or palette would you be choosing for that?
So you'd probably be going to your blues and your light greys.
Yep.
Would you recommend someone that's building their first home go for that? Or should they probably stick to something a little bit more simplified?
Just go something simple for your first home, but maybe for your forever home or beach house or
Blackberry.
Yeah. You could have a bit of fun.
Yeah, that's good advice.
And where do you think the design trends might go over the next 12, 18, 24 months?
So a lot of timber tones are coming back in, so darker timbers.
I'm noticing a lot of that, like they're really like dark walnut, and it does look very nice in the right application.
Yeah, yeah. And then I guess, people are sort of staying home more, especially after COVID. People are entertaining more, so they're investing more into their spaces and bars and al fresco dining, etc. So
what about like home layouts? Because obviously open plan has been a really big thing for a long time now. Do you think that would be staying consistent, or do you think people will look to have more separate living spaces at some point in time?
I guess it depends on the client. Like if it's a single person, they wouldn't have your zones or your wings or whatever. But say you've got kids and you want to be up the front and you have your own private area, like maybe a parents' retreat, and then you've got a wing out the back for the kids where they've got like a rumpus room and then all their bedrooms, I think. Yeah, I think it depends on the...
But you think that big entertaining space is here to stay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. You don't want to go into different rooms and, you just want it to be nice and open.
Do you see any, actually at the moment, one thing we are seeing come back that was, a lot more popular years ago is like a lot of arches and curves.
Mm-hmm.
How long do you think that's going to stick around for?
I mean, I love an arch
Agreed.
and a curve.
Me too.
So I hope it's here to stay.
Do you think it's a safe choice?
I don't think it's a safe choice. I think it's a bold choice.
But do you think it's a risk worth taking?
100%. Yeah, I love a curve. Mm-hmm.
We've talked a bit about colours today, but what are some other elements that, from an interior design perspective, clients should consider when they're building a home?
Well, I guess it's probably the quality of the materials. You want to pick something that is going to last. Example would be sticking away from a thermolaminate. There's been a lot of issues with that lately, with bubbling and heating, and I guess just being guided by your builder or your selection consultant with products that are going to last. Like if you went with a natural stone, some of them are so porous. So you've invested all this money into natural stone and there's stains everywhere.
But it's not functional necessarily.
Yeah.
I guess you have to consider your lifestyle in those choices too. And if you've got young kids who make a mess, is having
if you cook a lot,
is that the best choice, or is something like an engineered stone possibly better where it's got a bit more durability for you? For example?
Well, it's not porous, and it's some of the stones that you can get look like natural stone. So engineered stone looks like natural stone. So it's definitely a good option.
So, Amy, one of our listeners had a question that they'd like me to ask you. They're building a home and their house has some smaller spaces, but they'd like to know how to remain consistent when choosing their colours and trying to stick to a certain style in that smaller space.
I guess it depends on the actual style that they're looking for, but I would be looking at bringing that in through all your furnishings, your homewares, if you're going to have extra cabinetry, artwork, etc. But yeah, just keeping it quite consistent.
So trying to basically like use that space but spread it out throughout the house by using furnishings and other elements.
Yeah, you want it all, again, to flow. Like you just don't want it to be disjointed where you've done something different out in your living room, and then you also don't want to overstyle it as well.
That's good advice.
Picking key pieces. So if it is a smaller room, you don't pick a large modular sofa. It's all about balance and scale. So
I think it sounds like the idea is when you're building a home, what you want to do is you want to be consistent. You want to keep things relatively neutral as far as the actual selections go, and then use furniture well and bring elements in through that. And I guess that makes sense across small properties to larger properties. Really, you want to do the same things there, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I think also, like someone who's building now, their lifestyle may change in a couple of years. So whether it's like a newlywed couple, they might be starting to have a family. So you've got to really think about how the space is going to work for you in a few years, because if it is your first home, you are likely to stay there for a little while. So
that white linen couch might not be so nice when you've got young kids.
Yeah. Or maybe you decide to get a pet and you've got a white linen couch.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah.
So at the moment, obviously with all the different trends that are out there, what would you say your favourite design trend is right now?
The moody palettes.
You're liking that?
Just playing with colour.
Yeah.
I think is amazing. And good natural stones and just layers.
Yeah. Doing that's because obviously you're dealing with it every day. You probably like something that's a little bit more unique.
Yeah, and I think I love what we're doing with Blackberry, and that's sort of where we've gone with the powder room, and just using good quality materials and layering it.
Agreed.
Another important part, I guess, of interior design is lighting, and we haven't touched on that yet. But how much would you agree with that statement?
I think lighting is huge. Like you need to actually sit down with your consultant and go through all your LED downlights. You need to make sure you've got enough. You need to think about your feature lighting. So say if you're going to do a wall light in the powder room, you need to think about that before plaster goes up. So in your electrical appointment, because it is so hard to add it later.
That's true.
For some builds, there's brick, so you just can't do it. And then, just having a plan so where your pendants are going to go, and even if you just put an allowance there and you add it later on, it's really important to check it, as well as PowerPoints too.
Yeah. Well, it's easier.
And placement of PowerPoints.
Yeah. So I think the more the merrier. I mean, you don't want to overkill the space with PowerPoints, but, maybe you have one in the island and maybe you have one or two in the pantry or,
What are some key locations clients could focus on for PowerPoints where they might miss it, but it will be important in the long run?
I think a good one would be having a PowerPoint in your vanities.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
For charging things inside the vanity.
Yeah.
That is very practical, actually, yeah.
Jordan's going to call the electrician now.
I don't have it and I wish I had it, so I'll say that.
Yeah. I mean, some PowerPoints are quite unattractive. I mean, they're just, white. But if they're hidden, it's quite nice just to keep it quite seamless. So, yeah. And you can get them ready-made as well with some of the vanities.
We often suggest that our clients will put one in their linen cupboard for their vacuum cleaners.
Charging
so that can kind of just be tucked away.
Yeah, and then a lot in the laundry as well because you've got so much stuff that you need to charge. You might have your drill in there or...
If you have a drill.
If you have a drill that's not in the shed. But, your vacuum, your Dyson.
That's right, they're pretty popular now, the Dyson. And what about from a lighting perspective? What are some cost-effective ways clients can give a more luxurious feel, let's say, to their home with the use of lighting?
Like your powder room, doing a wall light.
Like a feature-type wall light in there?
Yeah, and that creates mood. So you can just leave that on at night. You could also do LED strip lighting under your vanities
that does
as
look
well.
Good. Yeah.
And then surface-mounted downlights over your island for about $150 each. 200, so it's not going to break the bank and you're going to get a really nice look.
And practical application with that too.
Yeah, and depending on the height of the ceiling, like some new builds are only 2.4, so you don't want to have a big pendant in the space that's going to...
Absolutely not, no.
Hit you in the head while you're trying to do your cooking.
So, and then just like pendant lights, again, they're not overly expensive. So
I think at night, like mood lighting in-house, like small lights that aren't your main lights can look great, like you're saying, wall feature lights or LED strip lighting, things you can kind of leave on all the time.
That indirect type lighting just gives that glow to a space without having the harsh light on.
Yeah, and then I guess with stairs, just having good stair lighting in there, like every second or third stair.
Have like a little step light.
Yeah.
I've got a simple question for you, Amy.
Yeah.
Warm white or cool white?
Cool white.
Cool white, and why?
I just think it's a nicer colour. I think, most people go with a white wall, so why would you want to make it look yellow?
So I'm going to say I'm a warm white man myself. I like that sort of orange glow it gives it, it has a nice feeling to it. But I guess that's where lighting is
It's a personal preference.
It's a personal preference. And I guess that question actually highlights the level of thought, in some ways a client needs to put in ahead of doing electrical or colour appointments, because that's the detail you can get into that makes a difference to your home as well.
And I guess it depends on the actual style of the home. So example, Blackberry, we've gone a little bit warmer, so we can do...
I was going to say, I hope we have.
We will do warm lights. Yeah. That's fine.
And a sand driveway.
Yes, the sand driveway.
Jordan's happy.
But it depends. But you don't have white walls everywhere. They're the Venetian plaster. They're like a snow. They're a warmer white. So definitely you can do the warmer.
I think what you're saying is it really depends on the space that the lighting's in, along with client preference as well. On top of that, do you think it can really change a space?
Yeah, I think it can. Yeah, I think if everything is a cool palette and you've got a warm light, I think that can look a little bit off.
It could clash a little bit.
Yeah.
Or on the opposite, if everything's really kind of stark white and then you've got really bright lights, it can sometimes feel a little bit like clinical and the space doesn't feel like that warm and inviting. I've got another really simple question for you, Amy. Out of 1,000 homes, what's the percentage that the clients would pick white ceilings?
Statistically speaking.
99.9%.
Didn't expect you to answer.
I appreciate the genuine answer. We thought we'd throw you off with a stat that you couldn't prepare for today.
But you nailed it. Except for Blair Gary.
Yeah, well, that's what the 0.1% is.
All right, got it.
Yeah.
Over the 0.1. What's some advice that you would give in general to somebody who's building their first home? And this might be design related. This might just be general advice you want to offer.
Do your research. I think that's a big one. So whether it's the builder, say you get an interior designer on board, just, look into it, look into their previous jobs, make sure that you're in line with what they want to achieve or you want to achieve together. Like you need to be on the same page.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
You want to be working with people who share the same goals
And
that you
vision,
do,
yeah.
and vision that you do for that process.
Yeah.
And I guess it is a very in-depth process. There's a lot of decisions, and you want to be really comfortable with the people that you're working with on that journey as well.
You're in it for a long time.
That's true. It's not just like a few months and it
Can be a couple of
years.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you need to have the same vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess your role as an interior designer, if we use Blair Gary as an example, like your job's not done. Like we've made our selections, but you've still got to make sure that they're applied in the way that you imagine or
100%. Like it is, it is a journey. So, it's a process. There's steps along the way and we've done all the fun stuff and now the building will begin and then more fun stuff will happen.
Exactly.
And then you get to finally see it all come together.
I know, which is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Is that your favourite part of the job, seeing it come together? Or
It is, yeah, seeing the final result. And I guess having clients that sort of trust you as well, and you bounce off each other, which I've found with you guys. We've had the same vision and
I think that's actually good advice in general as well. Like when you're working with a professional, you do need to trust them and you need to let them do their job properly. And, again, I say trust in the advice they're giving, or what's the point in having them there?
I know.
Yeah. I guess if you brought in your selection options and we completely changed everything, there's no point you being here. So it's good that we can give you our brief and actually let you go and make those selections and then show us and then for us to go, yeah, that's like really cool. And then we can bounce off each other from there.
Yeah, which I felt like we've done the whole way through.
For sure.
So, and the palette is just stunning.
Exactly.
It's going to be very nice.
Very exciting.
Yeah. I'll share some on the Turnkey Instagram for everyone to see.
Yes, because it is beautiful.
That's good.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Amy. It's been great to get some insight into the interior design process, some advice clients can take on around their colour selections and preparing for it. I think it's very helpful for a client to understand these things going into their build journey. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you
Thanks,
for having
Amy.
me. It's been fun.
It's been great.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Building Your First Home, brought to you by Turnkey Building Group. We hope you found our discussion insightful and feel more confident as you embark on your home building journey.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Building Your First Home on your favourite podcast platform. Also, follow us on social media at Turnkey Building Group for the latest updates and home building tips. We love hearing from our listeners, so feel free to share your thoughts, experiences, and any topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, have a great day and happy building.